It did three things. First of all, it gave a modest tax cuts to middle-income people so they could afford to go to the grocery store and keep the local grocer in business. Second, it gave money to state and local governments so they wouldn't have to lay off 1 million teachers and healthcare workers or turn around and raise taxes on you to keep them working, which would have been a disaster in this economy. Then, the third thing it did, only a third of it went to traditional job-generating prospects, and Mike deserves a lot of credit for getting more money put into it for transportation, for all kinds of transportation stuff. And there was a lot of clean energy investment that's now being invested that will produce untold numbers of jobs in the next 5 years, but not before the election. The only thing I want to say is there have now been 2 studies by independent groups. One of them says that the bill he voted for, that he'll be criticized for, created or saved 3.3 million jobs. The other one, by a man who was on my Council of Economic Advisors, and was the Vice Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Blinder from Princeton, said that if we hadn't done those 2 things, there'd be 8.5 million more people unemployed today. So the first thing you've got to do when you get in a big hole is to stop digging. That's what the bill he voted for did. It helped us to stop digging and to begin to build our way out. So now what? The real issue is, what are we going to do now? And all the Republicans all over America are saying, well, they're saying all kind of things, but their main argument is, put us in because the Democrats didn't fix what we did to you in 21 months. And we think that they did a terrible thing by passing that regulatory bill to make it harder for banks to do again what they did this time that nearly brought the house down. So we'll repeal regulation and we'll go back to doing what we did before, except we'll do more of it. I couldn't make this up. They've got a budget plan, and I really respect Congressman Tim Ryan from Wisconsin as their budget man, and he actually has put out a budget plan. It calls for a 25% across the board cut in all domestic spending over the next few years, and huge tax cuts, 117% of which, I couldn't make this up, go to the top 5%. The other 95%, the American people actually have a tax increase to get less in education, less in health care, less in investment for the future. Now that's their plan. In other words, we'll do what we did before on steroids. It's not legal to use steroids anymore, and it shouldn't be legal to put people who were doing that back in control of America's Congress. So what do you need? We need, first of all, independent people who think and do what's best for you today and in the future. And the one thing you got to say about this guy is he has been truly independent. He has not voted. He's not voted for the president on every issue. Because on health care, for example, we New Yorkers have a special problem. We got a lot of immigrants here who are undocumented, and our hospitals face real problems under this health care bill. On the other hand, the Republicans are not really concerned about your hospital. What they really want to do is to leave the insurance companies in control of health care prices, which has nearly bankrupted this country. So, you want to have somebody in there who wants to fix it in the right way. He does. I'll give you another example that I think is really important. The really important thing, as I said, is what do we do now? not ideologues. The thing that bothers me about most of the Republican candidates is they're utterly impervious to evidence. It's okay to have a philosophy. It's a good thing. It's a noble thing. And we need conservatives and liberals in the Congress. We need progressives and people who are afraid of change. We need all kinds of philosophies. We don't need any ideologues because an ideologue already has his or her mind made up and the evidence is utterly irrelevant. We wouldn't be around as a nation anymore if we had been governed by people who didn't care what the evidence was, who knew what they were going to do regardless of the facts. That's the first thing. He fits the bill. He's worked hard, gotten things done, and tried to tailor what he does to represent you. The second thing we got to do is figure out how to get this economy going again. Now, you just think about it. I've given a lot of thought to this, and I've done a lot of work on it. And even in my current life and my foundation work, I try to help create jobs in America, all over the country. Here's what I think. There are three things we have to worry about. One is, if we're not going to have another stimulus because we're worried about the deficit, where are we going to get the money to get this economy going again? I'll tell you where. The corporations of America have $1.6 trillion in their treasuries. We need to figure out what it would take to get them to invest that money again and get that job done. There's $1.6 trillion. Even more important, the banks of America, listen to this, once teetering on the verge of bankruptcy, are not only paying back their loans with interest, they now have $1.8 trillion in the bank uncommitted to loans. Now, we're not talking about this kind of radical, $34 loan for every dollar you got. Just a conservative bank loaning it $10 for every dollar you got in reserve could loan $18 trillion tomorrow. That's more than our entire national income for a year. This whole world recession would be over in a nanosecond if the banks would loan money again. We need to figure out what it would take to get